Blood drips from the janitor's fingertips as he stands surrounded by unconscious bodies. The grand assembly hall of Celestria Magic Academy lies in ruins. Marble pillars crack and splinter. Ancient tapestries burn with ethereal flames. And at the center of this devastation stands a man in a tattered custodian's uniform, his eyes glowing with the power of 1,000 stolen spells. But this wasn't always his story. 6 months ago, nobody even knew his name. The morning bells of Celestria Magic Academy ring out across the floating island, their enchanted chimes carrying across marble halls and crystalline towers. Students in pristine robes hurry to their classes, their conversations filled with discussions of advanced spell theory, elemental manipulation, and the latest breakthroughs in magical combat. They laugh. They boast. They dream of becoming legendary mages whose names will echo through history. And then there's Kael. He pushes his mop bucket down the eastern corridor, the wheels squeaking against polished stone floors that never seem to stay clean for long. Students brush past him without a glance, their expensive cloaks sometimes knocking into his shoulder hard enough to spill his cleaning solution. Nobody apologizes. Nobody even notices. To them, he's just part of the scenery, as invisible as the enchanted lanterns that light these halls. Kael has worked at Celestria Academy for 3 years now. 3 years of scrubbing floors, emptying waste bins, and cleaning up after students who treat the academy like their personal playground. 3 years of watching talented young mages practice spells he could never hope to learn. 3 years of being reminded every single day that he's at the very bottom of the magical hierarchy. Because Kael has no magic. Not even a spark. Not even the basic light spell that children learn before they can properly read. He's what the magical community calls a Null, someone born without the gift of mana manipulation. In a world where magic defines your worth, being a Null makes you less than nothing. The academy only hired him because they needed someone to do the menial tasks that even the lowest-ranked students considered beneath them. The pay is terrible, the hours are brutal, and the treatment from both students and faculty ranges from indifference to outright contempt. Kael finishes mopping a section of floor and leans against the wall for a moment, watching through the doorway as Professor Aldrich demonstrates advanced fire manipulation to a classroom of second-year students. The professor conjures flames that dance in intricate patterns, forming shapes of dragons and phoenixes, before condensing into concentrated beams of heat that could melt steel. The students watch with rapt attention, taking notes, asking questions, dreaming of the day they'll master such techniques. Kael has watched hundreds of these lessons over the years. He knows the theory behind most basic spells better than some of the students. He can recite incantations from memory. He understands mana flow patterns and elemental affinities. But all that knowledge is useless without the ability to actually channel mana. A group of third-year students rounds the corner, and Kael quickly returns to his mopping, keeping his head down. The students don't even try to avoid the wet floor. They walk right through it, their expensive boots tracking muddy footprints across the section he just cleaned. One of them, a tall boy with silver hair and the arrogant bearing of nobility, deliberately kicks the mop bucket as he passes. Water splashes across Kael's uniform. The silver-haired student laughs. His friends join in. They continue down the hallway without breaking stride, already forgetting about the janitor they just humiliated. Kael stands there, dripping, feeling the familiar burn of shame and anger in his chest. But he says nothing. Does nothing. Because what could he do? Complain to the faculty who barely acknowledge his existence? Challenge students who could incinerate him with a thought? In this academy, in this world, power is everything. And he has none. He's refilling his bucket from an enchanted water fountain when he overhears a conversation that makes him pause. 2 professors are walking past, deep in discussion, too absorbed to notice the janitor nearby. The first professor, a woman with dark robes and silver-streaked hair, speaks in a low voice. The headmaster is being stubborn about this. The restricted archives contain knowledge too dangerous to remain accessible. The second professor, a man with spectacles and nervous hands, glances around before responding. You're talking about the grimoire of stolen echoes. That thing should have been destroyed centuries ago. Exactly. But the headmaster insists on preserving it for historical purposes, as if history needs a record of forbidden soul magic. Where is it kept? Third basement level, section 17. Behind the broken spirit ward that nobody's bothered to repair, because they assume nobody would be foolish enough to venture down there. The professors turn a corner, and their voices fade. Kael stands frozen, his mind racing. He knows he shouldn't even be thinking about this. The restricted archives are off limits to everyone except senior faculty and advanced research students. For a janitor to go down there would mean instant dismissal at best, criminal charges at worst. But he also knows that nobody pays attention to where he goes. His master key opens every door in the academy. And if there's even a chance, the smallest possibility that this grimoire contains something that could help him, the decision is made before he even realizes he's making it. That night, long after the last students have retired to their dormitories and the faculty towers have gone dark, Kael descends into the depths beneath Celestria Academy. His footsteps echo in stairwells that see visitors maybe twice a year. The enchanted lights grow dimmer with each level, as if even the magic that powers them is reluctant to illuminate these forgotten depths. The third basement level is exactly as forbidding as he imagined. Dust covers every surface. Cobwebs stretch between ancient bookshelves. The air tastes of old parchment and something else, something darker that makes his skin prickle with unease. His handheld lantern, a non-magical oil lamp because he has no other option, casts dancing shadows that make the corridors feel alive with menace. Section 17 sits at the far end of the level, behind a door marked with faded warning symbols. The spirit ward the professors mentioned is indeed broken, its protective glyphs cracked and powerless. Kael's master key turns smoothly in the lock. The room beyond is smaller than he expected. Circular, maybe 20 feet across, with walls lined in dark stone. At the center sits a pedestal, and on that pedestal rests a book. The grimoire of stolen echoes is bound in black leather that seems to absorb light. Silver chains wrap around it, but the locks have corroded to uselessness. Kael approaches slowly, half expecting alarms to sound or guardian spells to activate. But nothing happens. The room remains silent except for his own breathing. He reaches out and touches the grimoire's cover. The world explodes into sensation. Knowledge floods into his mind, not gently but like a torrent, like trying to drink from a waterfall. Images flash through his consciousness. Spells, techniques, forbidden rituals that the magical community banned centuries ago for good reason. His knees buckle and he collapses to the stone floor, gasping, as information continues to pour into his brain. And then he sees it. The core technique of the grimoire. The secret that made it so dangerous it had to be hidden away. Spell theft through physical contact. The ability to absorb, copy, and permanently retain any spell or magical technique by simply touching the caster while they're actively channeling mana. The technique requires no innate magical ability. It bypasses the need for mana manipulation entirely. It works through pure absorption, like a void pulling in light. Any spell, any magic, any technique can be stolen with a touch, and then used as if it were the thief's own. Kael's vision clears. He's lying on his back, staring at the stone ceiling. His head pounds, his muscles ache. But more importantly, something fundamental has changed inside him. He can feel it, like a new sense awakening. A hunger. A void waiting to be filled. He struggles to his feet and looks at his hands. They appear normal. No glowing runes, no visible changes. But he knows with absolute certainty that he's different now. The technique has taken root in his mind, in his very being. The question is whether it actually works. Kael returns to his duties the next day, moving through the academy in a daze. The knowledge from the grimoire sits heavy in his mind, simultaneously exciting and terrifying. Part of him wants to test his new ability immediately. Another part fears what might happen if it doesn't work. If the whole experience was just a hallucination brought on by exposure to ancient magic. He's cleaning the training courtyard when opportunity presents itself. A first-year student, a girl with auburn hair and nervous energy, is practicing basic light spells in the corner. She's alone, which is unusual. Most students practice in groups, but she seems to prefer solitude, her brow furrowed in concentration as she attempts to maintain a steady glow in her palm. The light flickers, dies. The girl sighs in frustration and starts again. Kael watches her for a moment, then makes a decision. He pushes his cleaning cart closer, making it seem like he's just doing his job. The girl doesn't even look up. To her, he's invisible. He sweeps near her feet. The light in her palm brightens as she finally achieves the right focus. And then Kael stumbles, deliberately, his hand shooting out to catch himself against her arm. The moment his skin makes contact with hers, the world shifts. He feels the spell. Not from the outside, but from within, as if he's suddenly experiencing it through her senses. He feels the flow of her mana, the mental framework she uses to shape it, the delicate balance of will and energy that creates the light. And then that knowledge is being pulled, absorbed, dragged into himself through the point of contact. The girl gasps. Her spell flickers and dies. She looks at Kael, startled, as if seeing him for the first time. "Sorry," he mutters, backing away quickly. "Didn't mean to bump into you." She opens her mouth, perhaps to respond, but Kael is already hurrying away with his cleaning cart, his heart pounding so hard he thinks it might burst. Because he felt it work. He felt the spell being copied into his own consciousness. He felt knowledge that was hers becoming his. He barely makes it to an empty storage closet before he has to try it. He holds out his hand, palm up, and focuses on the memory of that spell. The framework, the flow, the balance. Light blooms in his palm. It's small, weak, nothing compared to what actual mages can do, but it's there, real, steady. He's holding an active spell, channeling magic, doing something that should be impossible for a Null. Kael stares at the light, watching it flicker and pulse with his heartbeat. Tears blur his vision. For the first time in his life, he's not powerless. For the first time since he was old enough to understand what being a Null meant, he has hope. The light fades as his concentration wavers, but he can call it back. He tries again, and again it works. Each time feels a little easier. The spell is his now, permanently copied into his being. He has stolen magic. The implications crash over him like a wave. Every spell in this academy, every technique, every bit of magical knowledge is now potentially his for the taking. All he has to do is touch the caster at the right moment. In an academy filled with thousands of students and hundreds of faculty members constantly using magic, the possibilities are limitless. But so are the dangers. If anyone discovers what he can do, if word gets out that he's using forbidden soul magic, the consequences would be catastrophic. He'd be expelled at minimum, imprisoned more likely, possibly executed if the magical Concord decides he's too dangerous to live. He needs to be careful, strategic. He can't just go around touching every spellcaster he sees. He needs to build his arsenal slowly, carefully, choosing his moments with precision. Over the following weeks, Kael begins his secret education. He moves through the academy with new purpose, no longer just a janitor but a patient predator selecting his prey. His targets are always alone, always focused on their practice, always too absorbed to notice the brief contact. A second-year student practicing water manipulation in the fountain courtyard. Kael slips on a wet stone, catches himself against the student's shoulder. The water spell flows into him, knowledge of how to shape and control liquid becoming part of his mental library. A third year working on wind techniques in an empty hallway. Kael's cleaning cart loses a wheel. He reaches out to steady himself, and suddenly he understands air currents and pressure manipulation. A teaching assistant demonstrating basic shield spells to confused first years. Kael brushes past while carrying a stack of books, and defensive magic becomes his. Each stolen spell expands his understanding. He starts to see connections between different types of magic, patterns that the formal curriculum probably teaches, but that he's learning through direct experience. Fire and air can combine for explosive effects. Water and earth create mud or stone. Light can be bent and shaped like physical material. He practices in secret. His tiny apartment in the academy's servant quarters becomes his private training ground. Late at night, when the world sleeps, he conjures flames and shapes ice and moves objects with pure force of will. His control is crude compared to trained mages, but it's improving. Every night he gets a little stronger. The morning he manages to lift his entire bed off the floor using telekinesis, he has to sit down and process what he's becoming. He's not a Null anymore. Not really. He's something else. Something new. A parasite feeding on the magical ecosystem around him, growing stronger with each stolen technique. But he's also still just a janitor. Still invisible. Still treated like he doesn't matter. The irony isn't lost on him. He could probably incinerate most of the first years who mock him. He could shield himself better than the defensive magic teachers. But he has to hide it all, maintain his facade of powerlessness, pretend to be the same worthless Null everyone believes he is. The strain of living this double life weighs on him. Every time someone treats him like garbage, he has to swallow his anger and remember that revealing himself would destroy everything. Every time he overhears students complaining about difficult spells that he could now cast with ease, he has to bite his tongue and keep mopping floors. But the facade cracks the day Marcus Thornweaver decides to make him a target. Marcus is exactly the kind of student Kael has learned to avoid. 4th year, top of his class in combat magic, heir to one of the wealthiest magical families in the kingdom. He moves through the academy with the absolute confidence of someone who's never faced real consequences for anything. Kael is cleaning the grand staircase when Marcus and his entourage descend. There are 5 of them, all 4th years, all from prominent families. They're laughing about something, their voices echoing in the vast space. Kael keeps his head down, keeps working, hopes they'll just pass by. But Marcus stops at the top of the stairs and looks down at him like he's just noticed an interesting insect. "Hey, janitor," Marcus calls out. His friends snicker. "You missed a spot." Kael glances up, sees Marcus pointing at a completely clean section of floor, realizes this is just harassment for entertainment. He should apologize, should pretend to clean the imaginary spot, should maintain his role. But he's tired. So incredibly tired of bowing and scraping for people who wouldn't spit on him if he was on fire. "It's clean," Kael says quietly. "I just finished that section." The laughter stops. Marcus's expression shifts from amused to dangerous. Nobody contradicts Marcus Thornweaver, especially not a worthless Null janitor. Marcus descends the stairs slowly, deliberately. He reaches the landing where Kael stands and moves close enough that Kael can smell expensive cologne. "What did you just say to me?" Kael's hands tighten on his mop handle. He can feel magic nearby. Marcus is gathering mana, probably out of habit, the way powerful mages do when they want to intimidate someone. It would be so easy to reach out, to touch, to steal whatever spell Marcus is preparing and use it against him. But that would expose everything. "Nothing," Kael mutters, looking away. "I'll clean it again." "Damn right you will." Marcus's friends have descended the stairs now, forming a loose circle around Kael. One of them, A girl with ice blue eyes giggles. Look at him. He actually thought he could talk back. You know what I think? Marcus leans in closer. I think you need a reminder of your place. The spell hits Kael before he can react. Pure force, concentrated and controlled, slamming into his chest and sending him flying backward. He crashes into his cleaning cart, buckets clattering, water spilling across the stairs he just cleaned. Pain blooms across his ribs where the spell connected. Marcus and his friends laugh. The sound echoes in the stairwell, mocking and cruel. Oops, Marcus says, not sounding sorry at all. Guess you've got more cleaning to do now? They walk away, still laughing, leaving Kael sprawled in a puddle of soapy water, surrounded by his scattered cleaning supplies. He lies there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, feeling the familiar shame and rage burning in his chest. But this time, something's different. This time, he has options. Kael picks himself up slowly. He gathers his supplies. He cleans up the mess. And while he works, he's making plans. Because Marcus made a crucial mistake. He used magic on Kael. Which means Kael felt that spell, analyzed it, understood its structure. And more importantly, Marcus has now made this personal. The game has changed. The stakes have risen. And Kael is done being a victim. That night, Kael doesn't practice in his apartment. Instead, he returns to the third basement level, to the restricted archives, to the room where this all began. The grimoire of stolen echoes still sits on its pedestal, seemingly untouched despite his previous visit. He approaches it again, placing both hands on the cover. More knowledge flows. Advanced techniques. The original spell theft was just the beginning, the foundation. The grimoire contains methods for combining stolen spells, for enhancing them, for pushing them beyond their original limits. It teaches him how to layer multiple magics together, creating hybrid effects that normal mages would need years to master. It also teaches him the cost. Every stolen spell leaves a mark on his soul, invisible but permanent. The more he takes, the more he changes. The grimoire warns that those who walk this path too far become something inhuman, consumed by the hunger for power until nothing else remains. Kael withdraws his hands from the book. He understands the warning, but he also understands that he's already committed to this path. There's no going back now. He's tasted power, and he wants more. Needs more. He just needs to be smart about how he acquires it. The next morning, Kael begins following Marcus Thornweaver. It's not difficult. The Academy's layout makes it easy for a janitor to be anywhere without raising suspicion. He's supposed to be everywhere, cleaning everything. Nobody questions why he's mopping the floor outside the advanced combat training rooms. Nobody cares that he's emptying trash bins near the practical magic laboratories. He watches. He learns. He maps out Marcus's schedule, his habits, his routines. Marcus trains every morning in the Western Combat Arena. He practices offensive spells every afternoon in the courtyard. He studies in the Grand Library most evenings, surrounded by admirers and sycophants. But there's one time when Marcus is alone. Every few days, late at night, he visits the restricted spell repository on the 4th floor. Kael has seen him slip away from his friends, using a faculty keycard he shouldn't have, accessing restricted resources like it's his right. Whatever Marcus does, in there he does it alone. Private, secret, perfect. 3 days later, Kael positions himself in a supply closet near the repository, waiting. The hours crawl past. His legs cramp from standing still. His eyes burn from staring at the narrow crack in the door. But he doesn't move, doesn't make a sound. Finally, near midnight, he hears footsteps. Through the crack, he sees Marcus approaching the repository door, glancing around to make sure he's alone before using his stolen keycard. The door opens. Marcus slips inside. The door closes. Kael emerges from the closet and approaches the repository entrance, His master key should work on this door, but he doesn't want to alert Marcus by walking in directly. Instead, he presses his ear against the wood, listening. Inside, he hears Marcus chanting. The words are in Old Arcanic, the ancient language of magic. Kael recognizes the spell structure from his stolen knowledge. Marcus is attempting something advanced, something dangerous. A combat enhancement spell that channels raw destructive power through the caster's body, amplifying their natural magic to devastating levels. The spell is also notoriously difficult to control. Even skilled mages struggle with it. Marcus is attempting it alone, without supervision, which is either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. The chanting stops. For a moment, there's silence. Then Kael hears a gasp of pain. Something's gone wrong. The spell has backfired. He can hear Marcus cursing, hear the crackle of unstable magic, hear the sound of books and furniture being knocked over. Kael should leave. Should walk away and let Marcus deal with the consequences of his recklessness. But he also recognizes opportunity when he hears it. He uses his master key and opens the door. The scene inside is chaos. Books are scattered across the floor. A table has been overturned. And Marcus Thornweaver is on his knees in the center of the room, wild magic crackling around him like lightning. His hands shake. His face is pale with pain and fear. The spell has latched onto him, feeding on his mana, growing stronger and more unstable by the second. If it's not controlled soon, it will either consume him completely or explode with enough force to destroy this entire section of the academy. Marcus sees Kael standing in the doorway and his expression shifts from fear to desperate hope. "Help me," he gasps. "Please, I can't control it." Kael hesitates. This is Marcus Thornweaver, the same person who humiliated him just days ago. The same person who represents everything Kael hates about this academy and its power structure. He could walk away, let Marcus face the consequences. Nobody would ever know Kael was here. But he'd also lose the chance to steal one of the most powerful combat enhancement spells in existence. And more importantly, if Marcus dies here, the investigation would be thorough. Someone might discover Kael's late-night activities. His entire operation could be exposed. "Don't move," Kael says, stepping into the room. "I need to touch the spell directly." Marcus doesn't question it. He's too far gone, too consumed by pain and panic. He just nods desperately. Kael approaches carefully. The wild magic lashes out at him, scorching his arm, but he pushes through. His hand connects with Marcus's shoulder, skin on skin, and suddenly he's connected to the spell. It's powerful. More powerful than anything he's stolen before. The magic thrashes inside Marcus like a caged beast, burning through his mana reserves, seconds away from catastrophic failure. Kael can feel its hunger, its violence, its terrible potential, and he begins to pull. The technique from the grimoire kicks in automatically. The spell starts flowing from Marcus into Kael, not gently but in a violent torrent. Marcus screams. The spell doesn't want to leave. It's latched onto its host, parasitic and vicious. But Kael pulls harder, using every bit of focus he possesses. The room fills with light. Wind whips through the enclosed space, scattering papers. The wild magic tears at both of them, but Kael doesn't let go. He keeps pulling, keeps absorbing, keeps stealing until finally, the spell breaks free from Marcus and floods into him instead. For a moment, Kael is sure he's going to die. The spell is too powerful, too wild. His body isn't prepared for this much energy. He can feel it burning through him, changing him, reshaping his very essence. And then somehow he brings it under control. The wild magic settles into his core, still violent but contained, still powerful but directed. The spell is his now, fully integrated into his stolen arsenal. Marcus collapses to the floor, gasping. The wild magic is gone from him. He's drained, exhausted, but alive. He looks up at Kael with confusion and awe. "How did you do that? You're a Null." You shouldn't be able to touch magic at all. Kael realizes his mistake too late. In saving Marcus, he's revealed himself. There's no explaining what just happened. No logical reason why a powerless janitor could absorb a spell that was tearing apart a fourth-year combat specialist. For a long moment, they just stare at each other. Kael's mind races, calculating options. He could kill Marcus. The spell is still raw and powerful inside him. One strike and it would be over. But murder would bring even more attention, more investigation. Or he could trust that Marcus will keep quiet. That self-preservation will override everything else. If Marcus admits what happened here, he'll have to explain why he was in a restricted repository, using stolen credentials, attempting a dangerous spell without authorization. His expulsion would be guaranteed. If you tell anyone, Kael says quietly, I'll make sure everyone knows what you were doing here. The faculty keycard you stole, the unauthorized spell, all of it. Marcus swallows hard. He's smart enough to understand the situation. Who are you? Really? Nobody. Kael says, which is both true and false. Just a janitor who wants to be left alone. He turns and walks out, leaving Marcus surrounded by scattered books and broken furniture. His heart pounds. His hands shake. He's just crossed a line he can't uncross. But as he feels the stolen spell pulsing inside him, powerful and deadly, he can't bring himself to regret it. Everything changes after that night. Marcus keeps his word and stays silent. But something shifts in how he looks at Kael when their paths cross in the hallways. It's not respect exactly. More like recognition. An acknowledgement that Kael isn't what he appears to be. Word spreads in subtle ways. Not about Kael specifically, but about something strange happening in the academy. Students whisper about a mysterious mage who appears and disappears. About spells that go missing from active casters. About impossible things witnessed by unreliable witnesses. The faculty begins to notice. Small investigations are launched. Security is increased in restricted areas, but nobody suspects the janitor. Why would they? He's invisible, irrelevant, beneath consideration, which makes it even easier for Kael to continue his collection. He targets advanced students now, confident in his ability to steal and integrate more complex spells. A fifth year specializing in lightning magic provides him with electrokinesis. A graduate student researching dimensional theory gives him spatial manipulation. A visiting professor demonstrates ancient binding rituals, and Kael absorbs them all. His power grows exponentially. Each new spell adds to his arsenal. Each new technique expands his understanding. He starts combining them in ways that traditional mages never could, blending different magical disciplines into hybrid effects that shouldn't be possible. Fire and lightning merge into plasma streams. Ice and spatial magic create frozen pockets outside normal time. Light and shadow twist together into beams that can phase through solid matter. His stolen knowledge gives him versatility that years of traditional training could never match. But he's not invincible. He's not even close. Real combat mages have decades of experience. They've trained their bodies to handle intense magical output. They've studied tactics and strategy. They've fought in actual battles. Kael just has stolen spells and natural cunning. He needs real combat experience. But how does a janitor get that without revealing himself? The answer comes from an unexpected source, the Academy's monthly dueling tournament. It's open to all students, regardless of year or skill level. Matches are determined by lottery. The whole thing is considered entertainment more than serious competition. Most advanced students don't even bother entering. But it would give Kael a legitimate excuse to demonstrate magical ability. He could claim he'd been hiding his power, pretending to be a Null for personal reasons. It happens sometimes. Not often, but enough that it wouldn't be completely unbelievable. The risk is enormous. If he reveals himself, everything changes. His comfortable invisibility disappears. His ability to continue stealing spells becomes much harder. But he's also reached a point where hiding is becoming its own limitation. He needs to test himself, needs to know if his stolen power is actually useful in real combat. He signs up for the tournament using a false name. The registration clerk barely glances at him. Just another hopeful first year thinking they have a chance. The matches are scheduled for the following week. Kael spends those days preparing, not by stealing new spells, but by practicing the ones he has. He works on transitions, on chaining different magics together smoothly. He drills his basic defensive techniques until they're instinctive. He studies recordings of previous tournaments, learning how Academy mages actually fight. The night before the tournament, he returns to the grimoire one last time. Not to steal more knowledge, but to ask a question that's been burning in his mind. The book is sentient, in its way. It responds to intent, providing information to those who know how to ask. "What am I becoming?" Kael whispers to the ancient tome. "What happens to someone who steals too much?" The grimoire shows him visions, other practitioners of spell theft throughout history. Their transformations, their fates. Most lost themselves completely, becoming empty vessels that existed only to consume more power. A few retained their humanity, but became outcasts, hunted by magical societies for the threat they represented. None of them found happy endings. But some survived, Kael says. Some controlled it. The grimoire agrees. Yes, some. Those with iron will and clear purpose. Those who stole not for power's sake, but for specific goals. Those who knew when to stop. Kael leaves the archives deep in thought. He's playing a dangerous game. But he's also in too deep to quit now. All he can do is move forward and hope he doesn't lose himself along the way. The tournament begins with ceremony and fanfare. The main arena is packed with spectators. Students fill the tiered seats, excited for the spectacle. Faculty members judge from elevated platforms. The whole academy seems to have turned out for this. Kael waits in the contestant area, wearing borrowed robes that don't quite fit. His false name is called for the first match. He steps into the arena to polite applause that dies when people see he's just some nobody they don't recognize. His opponent is a second-year student named Lyra Swiftwind. She's skilled in wind and air manipulation, known for her speed and mobility. She gives Kael a confident smile as they take their positions. She thinks this will be easy. The judge signals for the match to begin. Lyra immediately launches into motion, conjuring wind currents that let her practically fly around the arena. She circles Kael like a predator, looking for openings, testing his reactions. Kael doesn't move. He just watches, tracking her movements, waiting for the right moment. She thinks he's frozen with fear. She dives in for what should be an easy victory, wind blades forming in her hands. Kael touches the ground with one hand. Earth magic surges up, creating a wall of stone that intercepts Lyra's attack. The wind blades shatter against solid rock. Before Lyra can recover, Kael follows up with fire, streams of flame that force her to break off her approach. The crowd goes quiet. This nobody is actually fighting back, actually demonstrating real skill. Lyra's expression turns serious. She realizes this won't be easy after all. She pours more power into her wind magic, creating a vortex that pulls at everything in the arena. Debris, dust, even Kael's robes are dragged toward the swirling storm. But Kael is ready. He'd stolen a gravity manipulation spell weeks ago from an advanced student. He uses it now, anchoring himself to the ground while simultaneously increasing the local gravity around Lyra. Her wind magic struggles against the sudden weight. Her movements become sluggish. Kael strikes. Lightning, stolen from that fifth-year specialist, arcs across the arena. It's not aimed directly at Lyra. Instead, it ionizes the air around her, creating a cage of crackling energy. She tries to break free, but the electrical field disrupts her concentration. Her wind magic falters. A second attack. Water manipulation, forming a sphere of liquid that engulfs Lyra's head. She can't breathe. Can't see. Panic sets in. She cancels her wind magic completely, using everything she has to dispel the water, which is exactly what Kael wants. The moment her defenses drop, he hits her with pure force, the same spell Marcus used on him weeks ago. The impact sends Lyra flying across the arena. She crashes against the protective barrier and slumps to the ground unconscious. The judge calls the match. Kael wins. The arena is silent for a heartbeat. Then it erupts in confused chatter. Who is this person? Where did he come from? How does a nobody possess such diverse magical knowledge? Kael walks off the arena floor, keeping his expression neutral. Inside, his heart is racing. That felt good. Too good. The rush of combat, of testing his stolen abilities against a real opponent. He wants more. He gets his wish. The tournament continues through the afternoon. Kael faces progressively stronger opponents. A third-year specialist in defensive magic who he defeats with a combination of spatial distortion and shadow manipulation. A fourth-year illusionist whose tricks fail against Kael's ability to sense multiple types of mana simultaneously. A graduate student who nearly beats him before Kael unleashes a hybrid spell combining fire, wind, and kinetic force that catches everyone by surprise. By the time he reaches the semi-final round, the entire academy is watching. Word has spread that some unknown mage is tearing through the bracket. Students who normally wouldn't care about the tournament are crowding into the arena. Faculty members are taking notes. Even some of the senior professors have come to observe. Kael's semi-final opponent is Victor Ashcroft, a fifth-year combat specialist ranked in the top 10 of his class. Victor is tall, confident, and visibly annoyed that he has to fight some upstart nobody. He doesn't bother with pleasantries when they face each other in the arena. Just a cold stare that promises pain. The match begins. Victor doesn't waste time feeling Kael out. He attacks immediately with overwhelming force, conjuring a barrage of fire and lightning that turns the air itself into a weapon. The assault is brutal, relentless, exactly what you'd expect from a top-tier combat mage. Kael barely blocks it all. His stolen defensive spells strain against the onslaught. He's forced backward, forced onto the defensive, forced to admit that Victor is simply better trained for direct combat. Raw power isn't enough. Experience matters. Victor presses his advantage. He's fought hundreds of matches. He knows how to read an opponent. He sees that Kael's defenses are strong but passive. He shifts tactics, mixing in feints and misdirection. A pattern of attack that's designed to break through static guards. It works. A lance of pure force slips through Kael's defense and strikes his shoulder. Pain explodes through the joint. His concentration wavers. Victor follows up with a binding spell that wraps around Kael's legs, freezing him in place. The crowd is cheering for Victor. They recognize quality combat magic when they see it. This mysterious nobody had a good run, but now he's facing someone who actually knows what they're doing. Victor closes in for the finishing blow. Lightning gathers in his hands, bright and deadly. "Nothing personal," he says, "but you're out of your depth." He's right. Kael is out of his depth. Victor has training, experience, instincts honed by years of practice. All Kael has is stolen knowledge and raw desperation. But desperation can be its own kind of power. The binding spell around Kael's legs is strong. Traditional methods won't break it. But Kael isn't bound by traditional methods. He has stolen dozens of different magics, absorbed them all into his core. And the grimoire taught him that different spells can be merged, combined, pushed beyond their original limits. So he does exactly that. Fire to generate heat, ice to create thermal shock, spatial manipulation to disrupt the binding structure, force magic to amplify the effect. All four spells combined in a way that shouldn't be possible, that would probably kill a normal mage trying to channel that much conflicting energy. The binding explodes. Victor's eyes widen in shock. Before he can react, Kael is moving, closing the distance between them, with enhanced speed stolen from that wind specialist. His hand reaches out and connects with Victor's chest. For a moment, they're frozen there, connected by touch. And Kael is stealing. Not just one spell, but everything. Every technique Victor knows, every combat instinct, every trick learned through years of training. It all flows into Kael in a violent torrent. Victor screams. The spell theft is aggressive this time, forceful, taking more than it should. Kael should stop, should break contact. But he's lost in the rush of power, in the intoxicating feeling of knowledge pouring into him. He wants it all, needs it all. The judge's voice cuts through his haze. Break contact immediately. This is forbidden magic. Kael releases Victor and stumbles backward. The combat specialist collapses to the arena floor, gasping, drained. The crowd has gone silent. Everyone saw what happened. Everyone witnessed Kael's hand on Victor's chest. Everyone noticed the way Victor's magic seemed to just disappear. The judge descends from the platform, magic crackling around her hands. Identify yourself. Now. Kael's mind races. He's been exposed. His secret is out. There's no talking his way out of this, no explanation that would satisfy them. He could run, but where would he go? The Academy has hundreds of powerful mages. He'd never escape, unless he fights, unless he uses everything he's stolen, everything he's become, to tear through anyone who tries to stop him. The grimoire warned him about this path, about consuming so much power that you lose yourself completely. He can feel that edge approaching, can feel the hunger growing stronger. I said identify yourself, the judge repeats. Other faculty members are approaching now, forming a circle around him. He's surrounded, trapped, and then a voice cuts through the tension. His name is Kael. He's a student here. Everyone turns. Marcus Thornweaver is standing at the edge of the arena, his expression serious. I can vouch for him. He's been hiding his abilities for personal reasons. It's unusual, but not forbidden. The judge looks skeptical. That doesn't explain what we just witnessed. That was spell absorption, forbidden soul magic. Forbidden to practice, yes, Marcus says, moving closer. But not forbidden to possess the knowledge. Perhaps what you saw was a misunderstanding. Combat can be confusing to interpret. He's covering for Kael. Lying to the faculty. Kael doesn't understand why. They're not friends. They're barely acquaintances. Marcus has every reason to expose him, to reveal everything. But instead he's providing an alibi. The judge isn't convinced, but she also can't prove what she saw. The spell happened too fast, too chaotic. And if a student as respected as Marcus Thornweaver is willing to vouch for this nobody, perhaps discretion is the better choice. This matter requires investigation, she says finally. The tournament is suspended. All contestants return to your dormitories. And you, she points at Kael. You will report to the headmaster's office first thing tomorrow morning. Is that understood? Kael nods, not trusting his voice. The judge waves her hand, and the arena begins to empty. Students file out, whispering excitedly about what they witnessed. Faculty members cast suspicious glances at Kael before departing. Soon only Kael and Marcus remain. They stand on opposite sides of the arena, the distance between them feeling like miles. Why? Kael asks finally. Why did you help me? Marcus crosses the arena slowly. When he reaches Kael, he speaks quietly. Because I owe you. You saved my life when you didn't have to. Could have let that spell consume me. But you didn't. You also know what I am. What I can do. Yes, Marcus admits. And it terrifies me. But I also understand necessity. I don't know your story, Kael. Don't know why a janitor would hide this much power. But I recognize desperation when I see it. I've worn that look myself. He holds out his hand. Not for a handshake. For contact. For a deliberate choice. If you're going to survive what's coming next, you'll need allies. Someone who can speak up for you in places you can't go. someone who understands the politics of this academy. You want to help me? I want to make sure you don't destroy everything, including yourself. Marcus's expression is serious. The headmaster isn't stupid. Tomorrow's meeting won't be friendly. You'll need someone on your side who can navigate those waters. Kael stares at the offered hand. This could be a trap. Could be Marcus setting him up for a bigger betrayal. But it could also be genuine. An actual alliance with someone who has influence in the academy's power structure. He takes Marcus's hand. Not to steal. Not to absorb. Just to shake. To accept the offer. Tomorrow, then, Marcus says. The headmaster's office, I'll be there too. And Kael? Whatever happens, whatever they ask you, remember that half-truths are better than obvious lies. Give them enough to satisfy curiosity, but not enough to hang yourself. He leaves. Kael stands alone in the empty arena, processing everything that just happened. He's been exposed. His secret is out. The investigation will be thorough. His stolen spells will be scrutinized. His entire existence at this academy is now in question. But he also has an ally. Maybe. Possibly. Someone who might help him navigate whatever comes next. It's more than he had this morning. More than he ever expected to have. The walk back to his apartment feels longer than usual. Students stare at him now. The whispers follow him through hallways. That's him. The mysterious tournament fighter. The one who did something to Victor Ashcroft. The one the faculty is investigating. His apartment is exactly as he left it. Small, cramped, filled with cleaning supplies and worn furniture. But it's been his sanctuary. His safe space where he could practice his stolen magic without fear of discovery. Now even that feels compromised. He doesn't sleep that night. Just lies in bed, staring at the ceiling, playing through scenarios in his mind. What will the headmaster ask? What can he safely reveal? How much does he admit without incriminating himself completely? Morning comes too quickly. Kael dresses in his best clothes, which aren't saying much. He's never owned anything nice. Never needed to. He makes his way to the administrative building, his stomach churning with anxiety. The headmaster's office is on the top floor, accessible only by enchanted elevator. The doors open to reveal a reception area where Marcus is already waiting. He's dressed formally, looking every inch the high society air. He gives Kael a slight nod. Ready? Marcus asks. No. Good, that means you're taking this seriously. Marcus approaches the inner office door and knocks. A voice from within grants them entry. Headmaster Aldrich Stormwright is everything Kael expected and more. Old. Powerful. The kind of mage who's seen everything and isn't easily impressed. He sits behind a massive oak desk covered in papers and magical artifacts. His eyes, sharp despite his age, track Kael's every movement as they enter. Sit, the headmaster commands. Not a request, an order. They sit in chairs that face the desk. Kael feels like a student called to the principal's office, which isn't far from the truth. The headmaster studies them both for a long moment before speaking. Mr. Thornweaver, I appreciate you coming. However, this meeting concerns Mr. He pauses, looking at some papers. I don't actually have a last name listed, just Kael. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Kael manages. Just Kael, the janitor. The headmaster's tone is neutral, but Kael can hear the questions beneath it. A janitor who, according to yesterday's tournament, possesses magical abilities far exceeding what one would expect from someone in your position. I've been training privately, sir. On my own time. Training to what end? Most people learn magic through formal education, through academies like this one. You claim to be self-taught? This is the dangerous part. The place where half-truths become necessary. I discovered I had some aptitude for magic later than most. Too late for traditional schooling. So I studied what I could on my own. Practiced where nobody would judge me. And you chose to work as a janitor here? At one of the most prestigious magical academies in the kingdom? I needed employment, and I thought perhaps I could learn by observation. The headmaster leans back in his chair. Let me tell you what I think happened, Kael. I think you possess a rare ability. Something unusual. Something you've been hiding because you knew revealing it would complicate your life. Am I close? Kael's mouth goes dry. The headmaster knows something. Or suspects. Either way, denying it completely would be futile. I may have certain talents that are uncommon, yes. Talents like absorbing others' magic through physical contact? The room goes silent. Marcus shoots Kael a worried glance. This is worse than they feared. The headmaster doesn't just suspect. He knows. Or at least he's narrowed it down to the right conclusion. That's a serious accusation, Marcus interjects. Spell absorption is restricted magic, forbidden except under specific research conditions. I'm aware, Mr. Thornweaver, which is why this conversation is necessary. The headmaster's gaze remains fixed on Kael. I've seen a lot in my years, young man. Encountered many types of magic, both common and rare. Spell absorption is theoretically possible but extremely dangerous. Those who practice it rarely maintain their humanity. I'm not losing my humanity, Kael says quietly. I'm just trying to survive in a world that would otherwise have no place for me. You were told you were a Null. Yes. And that diagnosis was wrong? I don't know if it was wrong or if I found a way around it. Does it matter? The headmaster considers this. Perhaps not. What matters is what you do with this ability going forward. Spell absorption through touch, if that's truly what you possess, could be an invaluable asset or a catastrophic threat. The difference lies in control and intent. He stands and walks to the window, looking out over the academy grounds. This institution has existed for 3 centuries. We've trained thousands of mages, produced legendary, heroes and brilliant scholars. But we've also made mistakes. Turned away talented individuals because they didn't fit our expectations. Judged worth by bloodlines rather than potential. He turns back to face them. You've demonstrated significant magical ability, Kael. Ability that shouldn't be wasted doing menial labor. I'm prepared to offer you a proposal. Kael exchanges a glance with Marcus. This wasn't what they expected. What kind of proposal? Formal enrollment as a student. Accelerated curriculum based on demonstrated skill. Full access to academy resources and instruction. In exchange, you submit to monitoring. Regular evaluations to ensure your ability isn't becoming dangerous. Mandatory ethics training. And complete transparency about your methods. You want to study me. I want to ensure you don't become a threat while also giving you the opportunity to reach your potential. Is that so unreasonable? It's not unreasonable. It's actually incredibly generous given the circumstances. But it also means giving up his anonymity. Submitting to constant observation. Having his every action scrutinized. The freedom he had as an invisible janitor would be gone. But so would the limitations. As a formal student, he'd have legitimate access to advanced spell libraries. To master instructors. To training facilities. He could grow stronger openly instead of hiding in shadows. I have conditions, Kael says. The headmaster raises an eyebrow. Bold, let's hear them. First, my past employment here as a janitor is erased from official records. I start fresh as a student with no stigma attached. Second, I get assigned to advanced classes appropriate to my demonstrated skill level, not stuck with beginners. Third, the monitoring you mentioned has limits. I'm not a lab rat. I'll submit to reasonable oversight, but I maintain basic privacy. Marcus looks surprised. The headmaster looks amused. Anything else? Yes. Access to the restricted archives. If I'm going to be transparent about my methods, I need to fully understand them. That means research into spell absorption theory, historical precedents, risks, and safeguards. Information that's currently locked away in sections I couldn't access as a janitor. You understand that restricted archives are called that for good reason? I understand. But I also understand that knowledge is how we control dangerous abilities. Ignorance just makes the danger worse. The headmaster returns to his desk and sits down. He steeples his fingers, thinking. The silence stretches. Kael holds his breath, wondering if he's overplayed his hand. Finally, the headmaster speaks. I agree to your conditions with one addition of my own. You will have a mentor assigned to you, someone experienced who will guide your development and report any concerning changes. That's non-negotiable. Who would this mentor be? Professor Elena Darkwood. She specializes in unusual magical phenomena. She's also one of the few people in this academy who might actually understand what you're dealing with. Kael nods slowly. Having a dedicated mentor could be useful, or it could be another form of control. But he's not in a position to argue. I accept. Then we have an agreement. The headmaster produces a contract from his desk. Magical text flowing across the parchment as he speaks. This formalizes your enrollment, outlines expectations, and establishes the monitoring parameters we discussed. Sign here. Kael reads through the contract carefully. Marcus leans over to examine it as well, his legal training from his noble upbringing evident in how he analyzes each clause. After several minutes, Marcus nods. It seems fair. Nothing obviously dangerous. Kael signs. The moment the ink touches parchment, he feels something change. A subtle magic settling over him, binding him to the agreement. It's not controlling or restrictive, just establishing parameters, ensuring both parties honor their commitments. Welcome to Celestria Academy, the headmaster says. Officially this time. Classes begin Monday. Professor Darkwood will meet with you tomorrow to discuss your curriculum. Is there anything else? Just one question, Kael says. Why are you doing this? You could have expelled me. Could have turned me over to the magical Concord for possessing forbidden abilities. Instead, you're offering me legitimacy. Why? The headmaster's expression softens slightly. Because I was young once. Because I remember what it feels like to be desperate for opportunity in a system that seems designed to keep you out. And because I believe in second chances. Don't make me regret this one. They're dismissed. Kael and Marcus leave the office in a daze. In the elevator going down, Marcus starts laughing. Not cruel laughter. Relieved laughter. You actually negotiated with Headmaster Stormwright. Most people can barely speak in his presence, and you demanded conditions. Was that stupid? Probably, but it worked. Marcus claps him on the shoulder. You're a student now, officially part of the academy. That changes things. Changes how? For one thing, you're no longer invisible. Everyone saw what you did in that tournament. Everyone's going to want to know who you are, where you came from, how you got so strong. You'll have a target on your back. I've had a target on my back since I was born as a Null. Fair point. The elevator reaches the ground floor. I need to get to class, but Kael, watch yourself. The academy just got a lot more complicated for you. Marcus heads off. Kael stands in the lobby, processing everything that just happened. His entire life has shifted in the span of one conversation. He's no longer a janitor, no longer hiding in the shadows. He's a student, legitimate, acknowledged, terrifying. He returns to his apartment to find his belongings already being moved. A note informs him that student housing has been arranged, that his new dormitory assignment awaits, that his custodian's uniform has been replaced with proper academy robes. The transition is happening whether he's ready or not. His new room is in the eastern dormitory, 3rd floor, overlooking the practice grounds. It's small but clean. Much nicer than his janitor's quarters. A nameplate on the door reads simply, Kael, Advanced Placement Student. Advanced Placement. He'll be in classes with 4th and 5th years, with students who've trained their whole lives for this. Students who will resent his sudden appearance. students who will question his legitimacy. But he'll also have access to resources he never dreamed of. The spell libraries, the training facilities, master instructors, everything he needs to grow even stronger. That night, Kael doesn't practice his stolen magic. Instead, he sits at the small desk in his new room and makes lists. Spells he has, spells he needs, techniques he wants to learn, combinations he wants to try. For the first time since this all started, he allows himself to think about the future, about what he could become with proper training and resources. The next morning, Professor Elena Darkwood summons him to her office. She's younger than he expected, maybe 40, with silver-streaked black hair and eyes that seem to see right through him. Her office is crammed with books and artifacts, creating narrow pathways between towers of accumulated knowledge. "Sit," she says, gesturing to a chair. "We have a lot to discuss." Kael sits. Professor Darkwood studies him for a long moment before speaking. "The headmaster has briefed me on your situation. Spell absorption through physical contact, self-taught, demonstrating proficiency across multiple magical disciplines despite lacking formal education. Does that sum it up?" "More or less." "I'm going to be direct with you, Kael. What you're doing is dangerous. Not just to others, but to yourself. Spell absorption degrades the caster's natural magical pathways. Each stolen technique warps your internal structure a little more. Continue unchecked, and you'll destroy yourself. The grimoire warned me about that." Professor Darkwood's expression sharpens. "What grimoire?" Too late, Kael realizes his mistake. He wasn't supposed to mention the source of his ability. But he's tired of lying. Tired of hiding everything. "The Grimoire of Stolen Echoes, 3rd basement level, restricted archives." The professor goes pale. "You accessed that book? How?" "Janitor's master key. Nobody was watching." "Nobody was watching because nobody thought anyone would be stupid enough to..." She trails off, running her hand through her hair. "That grimoire is sealed for a reason. The techniques it contains are classified as soul magic, forbidden by international magical law." "I know what it is. I know what it does. And I know the risks. But it also gave me power when I had none. It gave me options when the world offered me nothing." Professor Darkwood stands and paces, clearly agitated. "The headmaster needs to know about this." "You're my mentor. That means you report to him. I understand. But before you do, ask yourself something. What good does it do to lock that knowledge away if nobody understands it well enough to help people like me? That grimoire exists. The techniques exist. Hiding from them doesn't make them less dangerous." She stops pacing and looks at him. "What are you suggesting?" "Controlled study. Research into spell absorption with proper oversight and safeguards. Not forbidden magic done in shadows, but documented experimentation that might actually teach us something useful. You said I'm degrading my magical pathways. Help me understand how to prevent that. Help me figure out how to do this safely." "That's assuming it can be done safely. Everything in magic is dangerous if done wrong. That's why we study it." Professor Darkwood sits back down, her expression thoughtful. "You make a compelling argument. But convincing the headmaster to approve research into forbidden techniques won't be easy." "Then don't call it forbidden. Call it unusual. Call it rare. Call it whatever you need to make it palatable. But help me figure this out before I destroy myself trying to do it alone." She's quiet for a long moment. Then she pulls out a piece of parchment and starts writing. "I'm scheduling you for medical evaluation. Full diagnostic of your magical pathways. We need baseline data to understand what's already happening to you. After that, we'll develop a training regimen focused on control and preservation. Not increasing your power, but maintaining what you have. I still need to get stronger. No, you need to get smarter about how you use what you have. Power without control is just disaster waiting to happen." She hands him the parchment. Report to the medical center tomorrow morning. And Kael? No more unauthorized spell acquisition. If you're going to absorb additional magic, it happens under supervision with proper documentation. Clear. Clear. Good. Now get out of my office. I need to figure out how to explain all this to the headmaster without getting us both expelled. Kael leaves with mixed feelings. On one hand, having a mentor who's willing to work with him is huge. On the other hand, supervised training means limitations, restrictions, oversight that will make it harder to push boundaries. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe having someone who actually understands the dangers can help him avoid the fate that befell other spell absorption practitioners. Maybe control is more valuable than raw power. Classes start Monday. Kael is assigned to advanced magical theory, combat applications, and specialized techniques, all fifth-year courses. His classmates are students who've been training for years, who come from magical families, who know the social dynamics and unspoken rules of academy life. He's an outsider, an anomaly, someone who doesn't fit the pattern. His first class is Advanced Magical Theory, taught by Professor Aldrich, the same instructor whose lessons he used to watch while mopping floors. Walking into that classroom as an actual student instead of invisible custodian feels surreal. The professor doesn't recognize him at first. Why would he? Janitors are beneath notice. But when attendance is called and Kael responds, Professor Aldrich pauses. You're the tournament fighter, the one who demonstrated unusual versatility. Yes, sir. Welcome to Advanced Theory. I expect rigorous thinking in this class. Magical ability alone isn't enough. You need to understand the underlying principles, the why behind the what. Can you handle that? I'll do my best, sir. The lesson begins. They're discussing fundamental force theory, how different types of magic interact with physical reality. It's complex material that builds on years of prior education. Kael should be lost, should be struggling to keep up. But he's not. Because he's stolen spells from dozens of different casters, he's felt how magic works from the inside, experienced the mechanics directly. When Professor Aldrich discusses force vectors, Kael understands because he's channeled force magic himself. When the discussion turns to elemental interactions, Kael can follow because he's combined fire and ice and lightning in real combat. His theoretical understanding may be limited, but his practical experience fills the gaps. Near the end of class, Professor Aldrich poses a question to the students. We've established that conflicting magical energies typically interfere with each other. Fire and ice cancel, light and shadow neutralize. But are there exceptions? Can anyone think of circumstances where opposing forces might actually enhance each other? The class is silent. This is advanced material, theoretical stuff that even fifth years struggle with. But Kael raises his hand. Professor Aldrich looks surprised. Yes? Plasma generation, Kael says. Combining fire and lightning in specific ratios creates a fourth state phenomenon that's more powerful than either source magic. The conflict between thermal energy and electrical current produces something entirely new. The professor blinks. That's correct, and quite advanced. How did you know that? I've experimented with it. You've created plasma intentionally? That's a seventh-year technique, graduate-level work. The class is staring at him now. Kael realizes he's revealed too much, shown knowledge he shouldn't possess given his supposed background, but he can't take it back now. I learn by doing, sir. Sometimes that means trying things that might not work. Professor Aldrich's expression is thoughtful. Dangerous methodology, but effective, apparently. Class dismissed. Mr. Kael, please stay for a moment. The other students file out, casting curious glances at the newcomer who's already captured the professor's attention. When the classroom is empty, Professor Aldrich approaches Kael's desk. The headmaster informed faculty about your situation, about your unique learning method. I'll be honest, I'm skeptical. Spell absorption sounds like something from dark fantasy novels, not legitimate magical practice. I understand your skepticism, sir. However, what you demonstrated in that tournament was undeniably real, and your answer just now shows understanding that goes beyond book learning. So I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. But I'm also going to push you harder than the other students. Test your knowledge more rigorously. Is that acceptable? Yes, sir. I came here to learn, not to coast. Good. Then let's start with an assignment. Write me a 5-page analysis of hybrid magic theory. Use examples from your own experience. Show me how you combine spells in ways that shouldn't work. Due next class. Kael accepts the assignment and leaves. In the hallway, students part around him like water around a stone. Nobody approaches. Nobody speaks to him. The social isolation is different from being invisible, but no less complete. Except one person does approach. A girl with copper hair and determined eyes. You're Kael, the tournament mystery. That's me. I'm Arya Swiftblade, combat applications major. I want to spar with you. Why? Because you beat Lyra in under 2 minutes using techniques I've never seen. Because you're apparently an advanced placement student despite nobody knowing who you are. Because I want to test myself against someone unusual. She crosses her arms. Unless you're afraid? It's a challenge, obvious and direct. Kael should probably decline. Should focus on his studies and his training with Professor Darkwood. But he also recognizes an opportunity. Sparring with someone skilled would give him legitimate practice. And if word spreads that he's willing to face other students, it might earn him some respect. Training grounds, tomorrow afternoon. Supervised match with proper safety protocols. Arya grins, looking forward to it. She walks away, leaving Kael wondering what he just agreed to. But there's no backing out now. Tomorrow he'll face his first official match as an academy student, against someone who's trained in combat magic their entire life. All he can do is prepare. That evening, Kael practices in one of the training facilities. Real facilities, with proper equipment and enchanted safety wards. No more practicing in his cramped apartment. No more hiding every flicker of magic. He works through his stolen spells systematically. Testing combinations. Refining transitions. Building muscle memory for techniques that were absorbed intellectually, but need physical reinforcement. Fire flows into ice. Lightning merges with force. Shadows bend around light constructs. Someone clears their throat behind him. Kael spins, defensive spells forming instinctively. Marcus stands in the doorway, hands raised in peace. Easy, just came to talk. Kael dismisses his magic. About what? About tomorrow, about Arya Swiftblade. Marcus enters the training room and leans against a wall. She's good, Kael. Really good. Top 5 in her year for combat applications. She's fought in inter-academy tournaments. She has sponsorship from a major guild. This isn't some random student. This is a serious opponent. I gathered that. Did you also gather that half the academy is going to be watching? Word has already spread. They're calling it the mystery versus the champion. It's become an event. Kael stops practicing and looks at Marcus. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't want to see you get embarrassed. Or worse, hurt. Arya doesn't pull her punches. She fights to win. And if you reveal too much about your spell absorption ability, if you make it too obvious, there will be consequences. I know. Do you? Because you're still new to this world, still learning how academy politics work. Let me spell it out for you. Right now you're interesting. A curiosity. An anomaly that people want to understand. But the moment you become threatening, the moment you demonstrate that your power could challenge the established order, you become a target. Not for admiration, for elimination. They'd try to kill me? Not directly, that would be crude, but they'd find ways to undermine you, to restrict your access, to make your life here impossible. The academy has a hierarchy. Disrupting it has consequences. Kael considers this. Marcus is right, of course. He's been so focused on gaining power, on stealing spells and growing stronger, that he hasn't thought enough about the social and political ramifications. Power without allies is just a target on your back. So what do you suggest? Win, but don't dominate. Make it close. Show that you're skilled, but not overwhelmingly so. Let Arya have some victories during the match, even if you ultimately win. Make yourself impressive without being threatening. That's politically strategic, but it's also dishonest. Welcome to the Academy. Everything here is political, everything is performance. The sooner you learn that, the better your chances of survival. Marcus leaves. Kael returns to his practice, but his mind is elsewhere now. He's been thinking about magic in terms of power and capability. But magic is also a social phenomenon. Mages have their own culture, their own rules, their own expectations. Breaking those rules, even unintentionally, carries costs. He needs to be smarter, more strategic. Not just about which spells to steal, but about how and when to reveal what he can do. The next afternoon, the training grounds are packed. Students fill the observation areas. Faculty members watch from elevated platforms. Even some graduate students have shown up to witness the match. Word has indeed spread. Arya waits in the arena, stretching, warming up. She's dressed in practical combat gear, enchanted for protection but light enough to allow full mobility. She sees Kael approaching and waves, her expression friendly but focused. Ready to show me what you've got? As ready as I'll ever be. The supervising professor, a combat magic specialist named Professor Thornwald, explains the rules. Standard duel format. Magic only, no weapons. Match ends when one fighter yields or is rendered unable to continue. Safety wards are active to prevent lethal damage. They take their positions at opposite ends of the arena. The professor signals for the match to begin. Arya attacks immediately, just like Victor did. Lightning and force, combined in rapid strikes meant to overwhelm defensive measures. She's faster than Victor was, more precise. Each spell flows into the next seamlessly. Kael blocks, shields of ice and stone, reinforced with defensive magic. The impacts shake his bones, but he holds. He's learned from the tournament, learned that pure defense eventually fails. He needs to counterattack. Fire streams toward Arya. She deflects it with wind, using air currents to redirect the flames harmlessly away. Kael follows up with a binding spell, trying to restrict her movement. She breaks it with a burst of raw force. They exchange attacks for several minutes, neither gaining significant advantage. The crowd watches raptly. This is high-level combat magic, the kind of battle that would be impressive even at inter-academy tournaments. Arya shifts tactics. Instead of direct attacks, she creates barriers of compressed air, limiting Kael's mobility. She's herding him toward a corner of the arena, reducing his options. Smart, experienced. The kind of strategy that comes from years of training. Kael could break the barriers easily. Could use spatial magic to phase through them or force magic to shatter them completely. Could demonstrate techniques that would leave Arya and everyone watching stunned. But Marcus's words echo in his mind. Don't dominate, don't threaten. Win, but make it close. So instead of overwhelming power, he uses cunning. He pretends the barriers are working, pretends to be trapped. Arya moves in for what should be a finishing blow. Her lightning gathers, bright and deadly. At the last second, Kael drops to the ground and rolls. The lightning passes over him. While Arya is committed to her attack, he strikes from below with ice magic, creating a slick surface under her feet. She slips, loses her balance. Kael is up and moving, closing the distance. His hand reaches out, aiming for contact, but Arya recovers faster than expected. She channels force magic through her entire body, creating a repulsion field that prevents physical contact. They separate, circle each other. The crowd is shouting now, excited by the back and forth. This isn't a one-sided domination. This is a real match between skilled opponents. Arya's breathing hard, but her eyes are bright with excitement. You're good, better than I expected. So are you. But I'm going to win. She attacks with everything she has. Multiple spells layered together. Lightning and force and wind all woven into a devastating combination. It's the kind of assault that would drop most opponents immediately. Kael meets it with a hybrid spell of his own. Fire and ice and force, merged in ways that create thermal shocks and pressure waves. The collision of their magic fills the arena with light and sound. The safety wards strain against the output. For a moment, they're locked in a magical stalemate, each pouring power into their attacks. The crowd has gone silent, watching breathlessly. Then Kael does something unexpected. He stops attacking, channels everything into defense instead, creates a shell of layered shields that absorbs Arya's assault rather than fighting against it. The magic flows around him harmlessly. Arya's attack burns out, her mana depleted from the sustained effort. She drops to one knee, gasping, her reserves exhausted. Kael could strike now, could finish the match while she's vulnerable. Instead, he steps back and lowers his hands. Good match. Arya looks up at him, surprised. Then she starts laughing. You're letting me recover? That's either really honorable or really stupid. Maybe both. She stands, still breathing hard but determined. All right then, round 2. They fight for another 10 minutes. Back and forth, trading attacks and counterattacks. Kael continues to hold back, not using his most devastating combinations, not revealing the full extent of his stolen arsenal. He makes mistakes deliberately, leaves openings that Arya exploits. Eventually, Arya lands a solid hit. Force magic that sends Kael flying across the arena. He crashes against the safety ward and slides down, genuinely dazed. The crowd erupts in cheers. Professor Thornwald calls the match. Victor, Arya Swiftblade. Arya approaches and offers her hand to help Kael up. He takes it, careful not to absorb any magic through the contact. They stand facing each other, both battered and exhausted. That was incredible, Arya says. You're way better than anyone expected. You too. That last combination was brutal. I noticed you holding back, though. Multiple times you could have finished the match but didn't. Why? Kael shrugs. Maybe I'm not as good as you think. Maybe I just got lucky in the tournament. Arya's expression turns serious. Don't insult both of us with false modesty. You have incredible skill. You just chose not to use all of it today. I don't know why, but I respect the restraint. She walks away to the applause of the crowd. Students congratulate her. Faculty members nod approvingly. She won, but she also recognizes that something else was happening in that arena. Marcus finds Kael afterward. Well played. You looked strong without looking unbeatable. Arya looked good, which will satisfy her supporters. And nobody got hurt. Perfect outcome. It felt dishonest. It was strategic. There's a difference. Marcus glances around to ensure nobody's listening. You're learning fast. That's good, because the real challenges haven't even started yet. Days pass. Classes continue. Kael excels in theory, struggles somewhat with practical applications that require traditional mana manipulation, rather than stolen spells. Professor Darkwood begins his evaluation, running tests that reveal exactly what the grimoire warned about. His magical pathways are degrading. Not dangerously yet, but the damage is accumulating. You need to slow down, she tells him during a private session. No more spell acquisition until we understand how to mitigate the damage. For how long? Indefinitely, or at least until we develop proper safeguards. It's the smart choice, the responsible choice, but it also means stagnating while other students continue to grow. Means accepting limitations he's not ready to embrace. He nods agreement while privately making no such commitment. The grimoire is still in the restricted archives. His master key still works. He's learned to be more careful about when and how he steals, but he hasn't stopped. Can't stop. not when there's so much more power to acquire. Week 3 brings a new complication. The Magical Concord sends an investigator to review Kael's case. A man named Inquisitor Graves, thin and severe, whose specialty is identifying forbidden magic practices. He interviews Kael extensively, examines his magical signatures, reviews records of every spell he's demonstrated. "Your story doesn't add up," Graves says during their 3rd session. "The progression you describe, self-taught over just months, isn't possible. Something else is happening here." "I'm a fast learner." "Nobody learns this fast. You're hiding something." "Everyone hides something, Inquisitor. The question is whether what I'm hiding is illegal or just personal." Graves leans forward. "Spell absorption is not just illegal. It's classified as a crime against the natural order. If I determine that's what you're doing, the consequences won't be academic expulsion. They'll be criminal prosecution." "Then I guess you better be certain before you accuse me." The Inquisitor's investigation drags on. Kael maintains his story, admits to nothing, deflects every probe. But he knows Graves is getting closer to the truth. The man is thorough, patient. Eventually he'll find the grimoire. Eventually he'll piece everything together. Unless Kael finds a way to stop him. It's Marcus who provides the solution, though unintentionally. During a casual conversation about academy politics, he mentions that Inquisitor Graves has enemies within the Magical Concord, that his investigation methods have been questioned, that previous cases he's worked have had complications. Kael sees the opportunity. If Graves's own organization doesn't fully trust him, perhaps his investigation can be undermined. Perhaps evidence can be made to point in wrong directions. Perhaps the whole thing can fall apart without Kael needing to expose himself. He recruits help from an unexpected source. Arya Swiftblade, impressed by their match and curious about Kael's secrets, agrees to be a character witness. She testifies that Kael's magic during their duel appeared completely normal, showing no signs of absorption or forbidden techniques. Marcus does the same, carefully avoiding mentioning the night in the restricted repository. Professor Darkwood, despite knowing the truth, submits a medical report emphasizing that Kael's magical pathways, while unusual, don't match typical patterns of spell absorption users. It's technically true. His damage patterns are unique. The headmaster, who has his own reasons for wanting the Concord's investigation to fail, quietly obstructs Graves's access to certain records. Coincidental delays, missing documents, bureaucratic complications that eat up the Inquisitor's time and patience. After 6 weeks, Graves gives up. His report concludes that while Kael's abilities are unusual, there's insufficient evidence of illegal magic practices. The case is closed pending future monitoring. Kael should feel relieved. Instead, he feels exhausted. The constant deception, the careful maintenance of multiple lies, the need to always be performing for audiences seen and unseen. This is what his life has become. This is the price of the power he's stolen. But he also can't stop, won't stop. Because every week he grows stronger. Every stolen spell adds to his arsenal. Every technique mastered opens new possibilities. He's addicted to the growth, to the transformation from powerless Null to something far more dangerous. Professor Darkwood notices the change in him. "You're not following my guidelines. You're still acquiring new magic." "I'm being careful." "Careful isn't enough. The damage is accelerating. At this rate, you'll suffer permanent harm within a year." "Then we have a year to figure out how to fix it." She grabs his arm, forcing him to look at her. "Listen to me, Kael. I've studied magical pathology for 20 years. I've seen what happens to mages who push their limits too far. The ones who survive become hollow, empty, shells that can cast spells but have lost everything that made them human. Is that what you want?" "I want to never be powerless again. Power that destroys you isn't power. It's just slow suicide." He knows she's right. Deep down, beneath the hunger and the desperation, he knows. But he also can't stop. The path he's chosen doesn't have exits, only destinations. Either he masters this completely or it consumes him. There's no middle ground. The semester progresses. Kael continues his classes, his training, his secret spell acquisition. He learns to navigate academy politics, learns which students to avoid and which to cultivate as allies, learns when to demonstrate skill and when to hide it. He's becoming someone new. Not the invisible janitor. Not even the mysterious tournament fighter. Something else. Something harder. More calculating. Less bothered by moral questions that used to plague him. Marcus notices it too. "You're changing," he says during a late-night conversation in the library. "Becoming colder, less human. I'm becoming what I need to be to survive. At what cost?" It's a question Kael can't answer, because he doesn't know. Won't know until it's too late. All he can do is move forward and hope he doesn't lose himself completely along the way. The semester ends with final examinations. Practical tests that demonstrate mastery of advanced techniques. Kael passes everything with high marks, impressing instructors and students alike. He's proven himself as a legitimate member of the academy. No longer an anomaly to be questioned, but a rising talent to be watched. During the winter break, when most students return home to their families, Kael remains at the academy. He has no family, no home beyond these walls. Instead, he uses the quiet time to explore deeper into the restricted archives, to find other grimoires, other sources of forbidden knowledge. Because Professor Darkwood was right about one thing. The grimoire of stolen echoes isn't enough. If he's going to avoid the fate of previous practitioners, if he's going to find a way to preserve his humanity while continuing to grow stronger, he needs more knowledge. Better understanding. Techniques that the spell theft grimoire didn't cover. He finds fragments. Pieces of lost magic scattered across forbidden texts. Methods for stabilizing magical pathways. Rituals for reinforcing one's core identity against magical transformation. Ancient wisdom from civilizations that understood the dangers of power better than modern mages do. None of it is easy. None of it is safe. But all of it is necessary. The spring semester begins with new challenges. Advanced students from other academies arrive for a joint training program. Inter-academy competitions. Opportunities for Kael to test himself against opponents who haven't seen him before, who don't know his tricks or his methods. He excels. Not by dominating every match, but by adapting to each opponent. By stealing their signature techniques mid-battle and turning them back on their creators. It's efficient, effective, and absolutely terrifying to witness. Word spreads beyond Celestria Academy. The magical concord takes notice again. So do the major guilds. So do underground organizations that deal in forbidden magic and illegal techniques. Everyone wants to know who Kael really is, what he really can do, how dangerous he might become. Kael stands in his dormitory room one evening, looking at his reflection in the mirror. The face staring back is familiar but also strange. Harder. Older. Changed by months of constant deception and secret magic. He raises his hand and channels power, watching spells flicker around his fingers. Fire, ice, lightning, force, shadow, light. A dozen different magics all available at his command. He is powerful now. More powerful than most of the Academy's advanced students. More versatile than many faculty members. If he wanted, he could probably destroy this entire building with the hybrid techniques he's developed. But power for its own sake was never the goal. The goal was survival. Relevance. A place in a world that tried to discard him as worthless. And he's achieved that. He's no longer a null. No longer powerless. No longer invisible. The question is what comes next. Because this is just the beginning. He's demonstrated his abilities in a controlled environment, an academy where the stakes are relatively low. But the wider world is watching now. Organizations are taking interest. Opportunities and threats are emerging in equal measure. He could stop here, could maintain his current level of power, and focus on stabilizing what he has. could listen to Professor Darkwood's warnings and avoid further damage to his magical pathways, could become a respected mage, graduate with honors, join a guild, live a normal life, or he could continue forward, continue stealing, continue growing, continue transforming into something that might not be entirely human anymore but would be powerful beyond imagining. Continue down the path the grimoire laid out, knowing full well where it leads. Kael looks at his reflection and sees the hunger still burning in his eyes. The choice isn't really a choice at all. He's already decided, already committed. The moment he touched that grimoire 6 months ago, this became inevitable. He's going to keep stealing spells, keep growing stronger, keep pushing boundaries that were never meant to be crossed. And when the consequences come, when the transformation becomes irreversible, when he's finally confronted with the full cost of the power he's accumulated, he'll face that too. Because being powerless is not an option. Never again. Whatever he has to become, whatever humanity he has to sacrifice, it's worth it. Has to be worth it. Because the alternative is going back to being nothing. Being invisible. Being the janitor that nobody sees, and he'd rather burn the whole academy down than go back to that. The scene returns to where we started. The grand assembly hall. Bodies lying unconscious. Destruction everywhere. Kael standing at the center, blood on his hands, power radiating from every pore. But now we understand how he got here. Now we know the cost. Now we see the transformation complete. The academy's elites surround him. The headmaster. The strongest professors. The most skilled combat mages. They've come to stop him. To contain the threat he's become. To end the experiment before it destroys everything they've built. Kael looks at them all and smiles. Because they're already too late. He's already won. Already stolen so much power that he's become something beyond their ability to control. Something new. Something terrible. Something that was once a janitor but is now so much more. He raises his hands, and the stolen spells begin to flow. Not one or two. Not a careful selection. All of them. Every technique he's absorbed over the past months. Every magic he's stolen from every mage foolish enough to let him touch them. They combine and merge and twist together into effects that reality itself seems to struggle containing. The final battle begins. Not with words or warnings, but with pure, overwhelming power. The grand assembly hall becomes a crucible of impossible magic, where the limits of reality are tested and broken, where a janitor who wanted nothing more than to matter proves once and for all that he cannot be ignored. And in that moment of absolute chaos, of devastating power unleashed without restraint, Kael finally achieves what he always wanted. He's no longer invisible, no longer powerless, no longer nothing. He's everything. And everyone who ever looked past him, everyone who ever treated him like he didn't matter, everyone who ever made him feel worthless, they're all paying attention now. They're all witnessing what happens when you push someone to the edge and then ignore them long enough to let them climb back up. They're learning the cost of a society that judges worth by magical ability. They're discovering that power, once stolen, can never be fully controlled. The story of the janitor who stole spells doesn't end here. It's just beginning. But whatever comes next, one thing is certain. Kael will never go back to cleaning floors, will never go back to being invisible, will never go back to being powerless. He's transformed, transcended, become something that the magical world will have to reckon with, for better or worse. And as the battle rages around him, as reality bends and breaks under the weight of stolen magic, he knows that this is who he was always meant to become. Not a janitor, not a student, not even a mage in the traditional sense. He's something entirely new, and the world will never be the same. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more incredible manhwa recaps just like this one. Drop a comment below telling me which manhwa you want to see next, and I'll make sure to cover it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.